So in this video, I want us to discuss the role of gender in enhancing the development agenda of any country. Now, gender is now recognized as a core driver of national development, not merely a social or cultural issue. Development theory increasingly shows that countries achieve faster economic growth, stronger governance, and more sustainable social systems when gender equality is integrated into law, into policy, and also into institutions. In Kenya, this approach is firmly grounded in the Constitution of Kenya, which embeds gender equality as a constitutional value and development principle. Gender therefore plays a transformative role in development by ensuring inclusion, by ensuring equity, by ensuring full utilization of human capital. So, what is the meaning of gender in development? You see, gender refers to socially constructed roles, socially constructed rights and responsibilities of men and women in the society. In development terms, gender is important because it affects a number of things. It affects, access to education. It affects access to property and resources. It affects political participation. It affects labor force inclusion. And it also affects economic productivity. So I want us to look at the constitutional foundation of gender equality in Kenya. You see, the Constitution of Kenya strongly promotes gender equality through Article 27, which is on equality and non-discrimination. That is equal protection before the law and prohibition of discrimination on sex or gender. Article 81B of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 suggests that not more than 2/3 of elective bodies shall be of the same gender. Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya on national values talks of equality, it talks of non-discrimination, and it also talks of inclusiveness. Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 on socio-economic rights talks of access to health, it talks of housing, it talks of education, and also labor opportunities. You see, these constitutional provisions link gender equality directly to development. Now, what is the role of gender in enhancing development? The first role of gender in enhancing development is number one, economic development and productivity. You see, gender inclusion increases labor participation and economic output, in that women's participation in economic activities leads to higher GDP growth, it leads to reduced poverty, and it also leads to improved household welfare. And here we have the case of Mitubel Welfare Society versus Kenya Airports Authority. And the facts of this particular case was that informal settlers, many women-headed households, were forcibly evicted. And the issue was whether the evictions violated constitutional socioeconomic rights. And the rule is that the right to housing and dignity is embedded under Article 43. And the application of this particular case was that the court held that the evictions were unconstitutional. And the conclusion of this particular case was that the state must protect vulnerable groups. So the significance of this case is that protecting women and vulnerable groups supports inclusive development. The second role of gender in enhancing development is property rights and economic empowerment, in that access to property is critical for development, so that when women have property rights, they're able to access credit, they're able to invest in business, and also the household, welfare can actually improve. And the perfect case here is the case of Rono versus Rono. And the facts of this particular case were about, customary inheritance, favoring sons over daughters. And the issue was whether discrimination was lawful. And the rule is that equality is embedded under Article 27 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So the application of this particular case was that the court struck down discriminatory inheritance practice. And the conclusion of this particular case was that there is equal inheritance rights. Now, the significance of this case was that it established that gender equality in property rights promotes economic development. The third role of gender in enhancing development is political participation and governance. You see, gender inclusion improves governance equality and accountability, so that women's participation reduces corruption. Women's participation, improves policy priorities. I'm talking about priorities like health, like education and welfare. And also, women's participation strengthens democracy. And the perfect case here is the case of Trusted Society of Human Rights Alliance versus Attorney General. And the facts of this particular case was that there was a challenge to appointment of public officials lacking, constitutional compliance. And the issue was whether leadership standards under Chapter 6 were enforceable. And the rule is that leadership must reflect integrity and constitutional values. And the application of this case was that the court enforced constitutional requirements. And the conclusion of this case was that governance must meet ethical standards. So the significance of this case is that gender inclusive governance strengthens institutional legitimacy. The fourth role of gender in enhancing development is protection against discrimination. You see, gender equality ensures fair access to opportunities. If you look at the case of Rono versus Rono, this case reinforces, equality before the law and elimination of discriminatory customs. Now, here's the development link. You see, there is no doubt that non-discrimination increases social cohesion and productivity. There is no doubt about that. The fifth role of gender in enhancing development is social development and human capital. You see, gender equality improves education levels, it improves health outcomes, and it also improves child welfare. So that when women are empowered, children are more educated, and poverty cycle reduces. The sixth role of gender in enhancing development is access to justice and legal empowerment. You see, gender equality ensures women can enforce rights. And if you look at the case of Mitubel Welfare Society versus Kenya Airports Authority, this case shows, how courts, protect vulnerable population. And I'm talking about vulnerable people, including women. Now, let's look at gender and development theories. The first gender and development theory is the modernization theory. Now, according to the modernization theory, gender equality accelerates economic development. The second gender and development theory is capability approach. Now, here, development is an equivalent of expanding freedoms. That is freedom including, gender equality. The third gender and development theory is the human rights-based approach. Now here, development must respect equality and it must also respect dignity. So what are some of the challenges to gender and development in Kenya? The first challenge to gender and development in Kenya is cultural barriers. You see, some customs in Kenya still discriminate against women. The second challenge to gender and development in Kenya is economic inequality. It is a fact that most women in Kenya have less access to credit and also less access to land. The third challenge to gender and development in Kenya is political underrepresentation. There has been a failure, in Kenya to fully achieve the two-thirds gender rule, especially in parliament. The fourth challenge to gender and development in Kenya is weak enforcement, in that gender laws exist, but implementation is inconsistent. Now, what is the role of courts in advancing gender and development in Kenya? You see, courts in Kenya have played a transformative role in advancing gender equality. Courts, invalidate discriminatory customs, courts enforce constitutional rights, and courts also promote socioeconomic justice. In fact, this reflects, judicial activism under the 2010 Constitution. Now, let's carry out a critical evaluation of gender in development. You see, gender equality is not only a moral issue, but also a development necessity. So that where gender equality is strong, there is economic growth which is higher, there is governance which is better, and also poverty is actually reduced. But where gender inequality persists, then development is slowed, social injustice increases, and productivity is reduced. So that gender is a central pillar of sustainable development, not just a peripheral concern. The conclusion is that gender plays a crucial role in enhancing a country's development agenda by promoting equality, by improving economic productivity, by strengthening governance, and also ensuring social justice. The Constitution of Kenya places gender equality at the core of national values and development principles. Cases such as Rono versus Rono, Mitubel Welfare Society versus Kenya Airports Authority, and Trusted Society of Human Rights Alliance versus Attorney General demonstrate that gender equality is not only a constitutional ideal, but also a practical driver of development. So that ultimately, no country can achieve sustainable development without full gender type of inclusion. My name is Biketi. If it is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and to follow this channel for more legal lessons.